What was going to be the longest string of names in the intro turned to just be Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Doja Cat, and Annie Samberg because so many characters, so many people. But the other folks will be talked about here on today's version of Things You Might Have Heard. I am Jay Cleveland Payne, and what I'm going to bring for you in a moment is the latest in yesterday's information for news, politics, current events, pop culture, great things like that. Both go-to stories for your mainstream stuff and unconventional type stories, and we are your go-to source for those things. We're going to give for you 8 stories for this morning, plus a little extra things to kind of get you in the mood of the stories that were conversational per said you. You essentially had a hand in telling what stories to talk about. You always do. So we'll give you those stories as well. Plus, we're going to give you some insights and some other things as well, and some how we got there. Stay tuned for that. It'll be great. So we want to make sure you know more about us by going to our website. This is theconversationproject.com, and you can see more stories about what we do, more things about the stories we do, how we pick them, what we have out there, and where we are. And it saves some time in the show, or shows that we call it, basically call it 2 different shows, to get you the information in the background so you can read up on us and know exactly where we are and not just troll because you see one video and then take it out of context, because it's the internet. Today is Friday, August 18th. We're going to get into the news, our headlines we have posted for today that you, as we said, have vetted as conversational. You told us that these stories were good to talk about, and we picked the ones from the top 15 stories from the past day to give to you in this update. Starting off with, yet again, Michael Oher and the Tuohy family. The Blind Side's Tuohy family plans to end Michael Oher's conservatorship. This will not be the end of the story, but after the back and forth, the Tuohy family is planning on ending officially the conservatorship of Michael Oher, which seems kind of odd that it's been going on, since he was 18, now that he's almost 40 years old, but he's still going through this, and they're still sort of making money off of things like The Blind Side and some of his licenses and some things going forward. They said on Thursday in a news conference that this is going to held, that Oher filed a petition that happened a few days ago after finding out about a month ago, apparently, that he had this conservatorship going on, and then having a book come out about his life, now saying he really wants to get back control of his life. Although the flip side news is that Mr. Oher had been basically trying to shake down the Tuohys for quite some time in the process, and this is essentially one last gasp of grabbing something's attention and maybe a little money going back and forth. What we're seeing in the social media realm is that the Tuohy family, although Sandra Bullock made the Tuohys look very, very good in the movie, them as a family have sort of basically the golden handcuffs of being one of those types of people. As many folks say, they are kind of a stuck-up Richie Weiss family. And Michael Oher, while having a pretty good career and making some extra money and time off the likeness from The Blind Side, and having that being an extra focus on him, in the later years essentially has grown, one may say a spine, the other may say lack of a conscience, and is now trying to get the money that he thinks he deserves. And that's whether he deserves it or not. This is a deeper story, a more contemplated story, not just the words I'm saying to jump on those things and make your opinion. This is when you need to actually read both sides on, see who's saying what, and you can make an opinion for yourself. Let's move to the second story for this morning, and headline reads like this: District Attorney drops at least 30 cases that involve officers charged in death of Tyre Nichols. We talked about the 5 officers, the main officers that were pleaded not guilty to second-degree murder in the beating of 29-year-old Nichols at a traffic stop. What's been talked about over that time is the fact that the tactics they used and the way they sort of did things made it, as the Scorpion Squad, as they call themselves, their cases a bit more harder to understand as being legal and valid. And so they had to go through lots of cases that these men did, plus some of the other people that showed up from the scene that didn't do well as well. But from the Scorpion Squad cases, the 5 individuals that were in this case, at least 30 cases have been dropped. Maybe up to 40 will be dropped when it's all said and done for these 5 former police officers. This is what happens when good cops do bad things, or bad cops do even worse things. Maybe the people that they actually arrested and put away meant to be put away, but when the procedure's not followed well, you get ways to get out of things. You get loopholes. You get consequences in these cases. So we'll find out consequences whether these other people were basically stopped and arrested and charged illegally, or maybe some of them actually should have been put away, but because of technicalities, they're now back doing whatever they're doing. Next headline reads like this: Arkansas schools defy Sarah Huckabee Sanders to offer African American studies. Now, you think Florida is going all weird on their studies and their education. You need to check out Arkansas, because we're not exactly following the DeSantis playbook. We got our own little playbook on our own that's all sort of patchwork of stuff. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders is doing the do to do a lot of do. Number one, she put in a brand new thing for teachers, which is supposed to bring more money and bring more people into the Arkansas schools, but doesn't actually fund it, which is a problem. Number two, there's all sorts of railing back and forth on this thing here, where they defended other AP classes, but literally 2 days before school started for the main school systems, the Arkansas Education Department of Education decided they were not going to justify and not going to put forth for African American studies. Basically, all other studies of all other cultures as an AP class exist, except for African American. What came out of this, I should say, that's more accurately grammatically correct, is the fact that many people, many fairly liberally white people, are ponying up money so that people can take the test for this course, even though it doesn't count towards extra credit and may not have any issues in colleges going forward, as a lot of colleges are dropping the AP requirements, AP as a way to judge anyway. The education system is all in flux right now, as they're not using race-based merit, and they're not using a lot of legacy merit, and some of the test scores are being dropped. SAT and ACT scores not being used. So how do you get into college? Basically show up with a check. That's a big way. How do you get to the bigger colleges? Show up with a really big check. They won't turn you down. That's kind of how it works. How do you get through high school and actually learn something these days? That's a big question, because the kids had an issue with COVID and just the learning system in there. Now that we're back to normal teaching, we're not actually doing normal teaching. So think about that one for a bit. Trump cancels press conference on election fraud claims, citing attorney's advice. For the first time in over 70 years, Donald Trump has listened to an attorney, apparently, and won't hold this press conference. He had scheduled for Monday to basically go off on the Georgia indictment stuff, basically a day of grievances on Georgia. Now, what's going to happen down the line and what he's doing for his counter programming for the debate, he might actually just show up late for the debate. I'd put 25% chance of him actually showing up like 2 hours earlier and saying, hey, where's my podium? Because he's made it, because he's there. They were also thinking that he was going to actually go and turn himself into the Georgia Police Department, to the Sheriff's Department of DeKalb County, right at debate time, so that they'd have to switch away from the debate to cover that as breaking news. There's that. Right now, the odds-on money is he shows up on Friday, because he can take his time to do that, but that's a no-holder issue. For right now, his attorney said he shouldn't talk about this thing, so at least for one day, one big promotional incident, he's not talking about it. Meanwhile, a whopping 64% of Americans say they are definitely not, or probably would not, support Trump for president in 2024. This is just overall. 64% of people are saying that they're not going to vote for him. About 63% of Republican voters want the former president to run. So there's that. That's an increase of 55% in April. But overall, for like the mass majority of people, most just don't want him to be there. And now when you do the masses, that is, of course, the Democratic-leaning folks, the liberal-leaning folks, all independents who don't claim a party, plus the Republicans. So it is a big, big number of more folks saying they don't want Trump, even though Trump will probably be the nominee and probably get more votes in his voting than he did last time, which was a record amount. But the other guy gets a record amount plus one, and he wins. We'll see how this plays out, because we obviously will see how this one play out. And of course, we're waiting to see when he's showing up in Georgia for his arraignment. Pentagon to make changes in military service academies to stem sexual assaults. This is more or less a very not well kept secret in the military academies, that there's all sort of issues with sexual assaults and sexual battery going on there. You don't hear it so much because they do a pretty good job of not talking about it. But when it's talked about, it gets out there big time. People wonder what's going on. People have a love for the military. I mean, we see it kind of stemming on as sort of the equalizer of people in a case. But in some cases, there's not equalization when you get down to it. There are issues with women having issues in the military. There are issues with various races having issues in the military. There are issues with people who are undocumented people. You can say that. Mostly folks from Central America of Hispanic descent descent who are in the military working towards getting a citizenship, and they have issues with that as well. This is something that's stemming on from a long tradition of just being military and being run by dudes, and the short tradition of having women in the academies being on the elite level. We will see what happens, and if any of these policies that go into place will help the system. It definitely is a PR hit, so help the people talk about what's going on. But will there be less issues that come out 5-6 years later after the people have washed out and can now talk about it? That we're going to see. Doja Cat responds after 500,000 fans unfollow her on IG. Her quote, "I feel free." She's been making headlines for a number of just statements that are just sort of off-brand for her. And while I don't follow her, so I don't really know what on-brand for her is, what's happening is that Doja Cat has what she's saying, quote, "demonic critics who won't matter and never did after sharing bloody photos on Instagram. She feels free." It's weird. Yeah. She had lost about 300,000 followers on Instagram, but her latest follower counts are now back up to 25.1 million, suggesting that it's another dip of 500,000 Instagram folks. I can't pick up Doja Cat from a lineup. I have no idea what she sings. I'm sure she's a lovely person, just saying sort of weird off things right now in the social media. And in the realm where we are quietly canceling people, she's slowly being canceled, yet she still has 25.1 million folks following her on Instagram. So she can't be being canceled by that much. And finally, Lyft and Uber say they will leave Minneapolis if the mayor signs a minimum wage bill for drivers. This has been sort of the big turning point for the wage is given to people doing gig economy stuff, doing side hustle type stuff, things like Uber and Lyft, things like the food delivery services like DoorDash, things like that. The problem is you're basically riding around for change based on what someone's looking for, and because you're not a full-time employee, you don't have those same rights. So as a full-time employee or a person with minimum wage for driving, like you're going to get so much for driving, you can't just sit there and get enough wages by earning them or by picking them up. Minneapolis is going to put out a bill that's going to say minimum wage for drivers, period. Many places are doing this, and right now Lyft and Uber are saying they're done if this happens. If this happens here and in other places, Lyft and Uber may be done as a company, as they probably can't afford a minimum wage guaranteed for people just sitting on the clock who don't actually pick up fares. We will see how this one plays out as well. For our apologies, errors, and omissions, we are omitting today that we've not talked about Hurricane Hillary. Hurricane Hillary is forming in the Pacific on the left side of the actual continent of the United States. Continent of North America, and is going to punish Mexico and going to punish many South American countries. But because of where it is, it has a good chance of making landfall in California. The first tropical storm, now hurricane, that can make landfall in California, actually on land, the eye inside of the state, in 84 years. Check that out in your weather forecast because it's all over the place. This is one we didn't have time to get into with all the other things that we covered in the morning. Something we can cover come Monday is the story here in our headlines as our teaser story. Now we're going to explain the feeds and how you vote stories up right now with this story. The headline we have is wildfire evacuees frustrated by Facebook news ban in Canada. We talked a lot about the wildfires in Maui and Hawaii lately. We've talked a lot about wildfires in Canada before, but right now this is a new flare up, for pun actually intended, to talk about the Canada and Facebook. Facebook has a ban on people sharing news articles in Canada because of, fake news. So because of that, people who use social media to get their information from people quickly aren't getting information on evacuation stuff. It's an issue. It's a real issue. Do you want to talk about it? Go to our feeds on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/This Is a Conversation Project and Twitter.com/th_conversation, or X.com with all that stuff as well. As you see, every 50 minutes we post a news story. Like it, love it, hate it, engage in the story as you see them in the feeds. And the higher engagement score it gets, more people engage in it, better chance we have of talking about it come the next day. In this case, come 3 days later, we'll do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, plus a teeny bit of Monday to give you 10 stories Monday morning from the top 30 stories of the weekend. This has a long way to go, but Friday stories tend to last fairly well once they're big enough because of the drop off of people checking things on Saturday and Sunday. If you want to talk about wildfires and it being an issue in Canada because of Facebook, oddly enough, this is your chance. Vote it up with your engagement over the weekend. Now, we're going to talk about a sponsor we want to highlight today, and that being PS Print. Get your printing needs and your banner needs and your promotional needs from a place like PS Print. If you use PS Print, we get a commission back as an affiliate link, and that link happens to be at thisisaconversationproject.com/PS Print. So if you use that link, we get an affiliate commission back from that one. But what you'll get from them is a great addition to your team, your marketing team. You're essentially contracting out your marketing to PS Print by using them to create flyers, create banners, create all your materials that you need for your next event. And they do it in a very efficient manner, a very effective manner, and a very economical manner. Check them out, and they may be your new team member for your promotional team at PS Print. Find them at thisisaconversationproject.com/PS Print. And remember, this is an affiliate link, so if you buy from them, they give us a small commission. It costs you nothing extra, but you will love what you receive from the company, PS Print. The Conversation Project lives at thisisaconversationproject.com. This project is a long-standing, long-going production that I've been doing at various stages with a few different lives here or there, but it's always at the heart of it been talking to people. It started off as surveys and turned into checking out what news stories people could be talking about and should be talking about, to now where we use your engagement scores to tell us what exactly people should be talking about because they are conversational per you. I don't make the full playlist. I don't make the rundown. You actually put all the effort into what we're taking in. I just move things in order. If you like what we're doing, check us out at our website, thisisaconversationproject.com. Consider partnering up with us at the partnerships page so we can get on that one. But make sure you continue to follow us on the feeds on Facebook and Twitter, and send us emails at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. That way we know what we're talking about. We know the stories from the feeds, and we know the feedback from the email. So keep on reaching out. That's the most important thing you can do. If you do that, we'll find ways to keep other things going, guaranteed. So you've stuck around for all of that good stuff, the really good stuff, which was the news. The news is actually the meat of the actual stuff. And you followed us for all the promotional stuff as well. Let's get to what we call, in our second show, the good stuff. The good stuff starts every single morning with August 18th, or every single morning with birthdays. And today is August 18th. And the birthdays for today include Christian Slater. Christian Slater. Charlie Slater is Slater. Christian Slater is Slater. Sometimes I get those confused, even though we're not going to deal with Charlie Slater. Christian Slater is 54 years old on the day. Happy birthday to Christian Slater. Malcolm Jamal Warner, who's not getting a lot of love in a lot of things overtly, if you will, but still doing a lot of work in Hollywood and producing things going well. Malcolm and Eddie, his last big-time TV role, if you will. And, of course, The Cosby Show, where he got essentially fame and fortune from them, even with all of the Cosby Show things going on now. Happy 53rd birthday to Malcolm Jamal Warner. And Andy Samberg, who we had to replace for Malcolm Jamal Warner because his name was too long in the promo stuff, he's 45 years old in the day. Cool guy, he just is not Malcolm Jamal Warner. That's just obvious. Our history lesson for today has us go starting off in 1587. So for the 18th of August, way back when, Virginia Dare became the first child of English parents to be born on American soil on what is now Roanoke Island, North Carolina. You may remember that as the whole missing colony thing, but the first recorded person born from English parents who traveled over here is Virginia Dare. Of course, we don't actually know her whereabouts because when people came back to visit the Roanoke Island and their colony, everyone was gone. 1920, the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, which guaranteed the right of women to vote, was ratified when Tennessee became the 36th state to approve it. It took that many states of the I don't think there was 50 states. I think there was only 48 states at the time. I don't have this in the notes, so I apologize. To ratify this to give women the right to vote finally in 1920. Remember, this nation was founded in 1776, where many people that were not white guys did not have the right to vote. And in 1969, the Woodstock Music and Art Festival Fair, proper name, near Bethel, New York, concluded with a mid-morning set by Jimi Hendrix. Of course, the very famous Star Spangled Banner popping up there. And that's essentially the end of the show, as we said earlier when we talked about Woodstock opening, where, you know, there were probably 20 million people on the planet at the time, and 20 million people said they went to Woodstock, which had space for about 100,000 or so. Everybody went to Woodstock. Just go with it. Everybody went to Freaknik. Just go with it. If they said it, they said it. Just go with it. On this 18th of August, we're going to celebrate Bad Poetry Day, and you would think I would have bad poetry to present for you here. I do not. And I apologize for that. Actually, I don't, because my poetry is pretty much really, really bad. But if you know of a bad poet or have bad poetry in your heart, today is a day to spout it, to say it loud, to put on one of those bard collars and carry around a fake skull and stare into the sky and just kind of repeat things out there. Today would be a good day to do that. Or not. You can just celebrate Pizza Day because it's Friday. You can do that too. But today we're highlighting at least Bad Poetry Day. I tend to keep my bad poetry locked in the storage unit with the mother documents because we ain't going there today. And finally, one more thing you might not have heard. A new poll found that of workers who have paid time off in the U.S., just 48% said they took all the time off offered. I'm the other side. 46% said they took less time off than was offered. I'm that side. The reasons were varied. 49% said those who took less time off of what was offered were worried they might fall behind at work. 43% felt that it would mean colleagues had to take on additional work. 52% said simply they didn't feel like they needed to take more time off. I'm definitely not that guy. Salary workers were likelier than hourly workers to take less paid time off, because hourly workers need the paychecks. With 54% of managers said they took less time off than available, compared to 40% of non-managers, because managers think they're going to lose their jobs or something's not going to get done and they'll get blamed for it. This is a serious problem. I'm going to take a moment to editorialize for just a bit. Time off is money, number one, and time off is also rest for you, even if you take your time off and do something else that's a lot of work. I take my time off from my actual job and put a lot of it into this stuff, so it turns into work itself, but it's more or less enjoyable work that improves my life, improves my other things, and hopefully this will be my full-time job, and then I can complain about this all the time. So your paid time off is something that your employer probably doesn't want to give you, but you've got it. So you need to use as much paid time off, if not all of it, as possible. And this is something that some common person who cannot find a way to take time off, because when I go away, they break 3 times as many things and I come back and I'm just more frustrated. It's the truth. However, taking your time off is what you need to do. It's what I need to do. It's what my wife who will probably watch this on replay and say, well, why'd you say it if you're not going to do it? Well, that's my domestic situation. Your domestic situation may vary. What does not vary is the fact that we're done for today's edition of Things You Might Have Heard. It is Friday, August the 18th, 2023, as these words are coming out of my mouth. We thank you so much for being a part of the show with us today. We cannot do these things without you, because you literally put the words into my mouth every single weekday morning and every weekend. Now, you saw we talked about the top stories, or some of the top stories for today, and we did it all week long. In a few hours, we'll start working on the weekly wrap-up, getting you the full review of stories, top to bottom, of the most engaging stories based on your peer engagement. So we'll give you top 10 stories that you loved on top of stuff beside me moving things around. There's going to be a bunch of stories that are going to be barely overtaking the stories. So we had some really big responses to some things. And there's also going to be a bunch of stories we didn't cover because they were kind of a little not very nice stories. We don't do any of the cover-ups. We give you all the pure 10 stories. Plus, we actually talk to the stories that really don't make it to the list because for some reason there's no engagement. We get those as well. We also will have for you the story of the week, which is a bit of editorializing on one of the top stories of the week, and some other things inside of TikTok and Facebook for quick hits as well. Find us at our website, thisisaconversationproject.com. If you deem us worthy, check out our partnerships page. In the meantime, just keep on following us on the feeds and emailing us with your input so we can make things better. Stay limber, stay hydrated, and stay on task for all the grand things you are here to do. We want to see you come Monday. We want to see you come the next Monday and the next Monday and next Monday. But make sure that you are sticking around with us so we can talk about what to talk about for the weekend. What stories will be in the tops for Monday morning? Only you can determine that through the weekend of news gathering for us and news responding to for you. Thank you very much. Let's do it again on Monday.